It's Sunday, July 23, 2023. I'm Anthony Davis. Welcome to the Weekend Show, where we take a deep dive into the news of the week. You can support my work and independent journalism at patreon.com/5Minute News. Our guest today is an Idaho resident who was sentenced to 2 months in jail for her participation in the January 6, 2021 siege of the U.S. Capitol building. She pleaded guilty to one misdemeanor count of parading, demonstrating, or picketing in the Capitol building and served her full sentence. U.S. District Judge said it's tempting to be lenient, but couldn't justify letting her walk away after her offenses at the Capitol. Pam Hemphill, welcome to the Weekend Show.
Thank you, Anthony. Good to be with you.
So let's be clear at the very beginning. You are a reformed MAGA Republican, by the sounds of it. And so I'm very interested in your journey leading up to January 6th. And would I be right in saying that you are still a Republican?
Yes, correct.
So we'll come to that a little bit later, because I find that kind of interesting as well, off the back of what you've been through, the journey that you've been through to kind of get to this point. Let's just, for people who don't know your story, let's just kind of back up a little bit to January 5th, January 6th. You were encouraged to go to the Capitol. You are a breast cancer survivor. You'd had surgery, and still you got on a plane and you flew from Idaho to Washington, D.C. to be part of this Stop the Steal rally, right? To kind of see Donald Trump, I guess, and to want to kind of soak up the atmosphere and to shoot some video. Just tell us kind of where you were at on in those few days leading up to January 6th.
Yes, thank you. Well, a family member knew that I was scheduled to start my chemotherapy in a few weeks, and he called and said, look, since that's all you're doing right now is out there videotaping all these political events, how would you like to go see Trump? And I said, oh, that would be wonderful. He said, because it may be his last speech out there for a while. And I said, that would be great. So the motive was just to go videotape and have a good time. That's all.
You must have known that the political climate leading up to that was becoming increasingly fractious, because Donald Trump had said multiple times on television that he would only acknowledge that the election was fair if he won. He basically, when he was asked, are you committed to a peaceful transfer of power? He was like, well, if the election's fair, then I'm going to win this. And that was, to the rest of us who were not in the Trump cult, and you acknowledge that it's a cult now, which I'm grateful for, and I'm sure a lot of people are grateful for. Was there no kind of this idea that democracy was potentially being subverted? Were you so convinced that there was election fraud that whatever he said was gospel? Was there anything in your mind that thought, I might be being played here?
Understanding gaslighting now, really how it works, I was on the edge all the time. I would continuously try to debunk what was being said about Trump or what Trump was saying. And of course, the cult members, they help you go back into denial and say, what Trump came up with was fake news. And they would say to me, you're not listening to CNN, are you? You're not listening to those channels. They're lying to you, Pam. The election was stolen. And I would go, yeah, but where's the proof? I haven't seen any proof yet. And so a lot of that went on, and they really took away my critical thinking. And where I'm guilty mainly is because I didn't do my own research. We need to do our own research.
It is hard, and I do feel for you because, I understand how the media works, and it is designed to keep you within your own bubble and your own ecosystem. And even when you think you are cross-referencing elsewhere, you're actually still looking at propaganda. And it's very hard to have that critical thought to be able to say, well, actually, this is the real deal and this is not the real deal. And that's why journalists, that's why we exist, right? It's our job to decipher the code and have enough instinct to know what is real and what is not real. And for me, the saddest part of Trump's presidency was him denigrating the free press and making journalists out to be the enemy of the people when we were anything but.
Exactly. They give you three places: Gateway, Pundit, Fox News, and I'm trying to remember the other one. And they don't really want you listening to anybody else. It's really, if you are, they're just lying. They're trying to protect. See, it's hard to understand, but they drain it in your head over and over. And Trump, that they're trying to make this a communist country. So you want to stand up for your country, and you're afraid. The fear that is put on you about what the Democrats are doing is frightening. And these are your friends around you. This is my friend at the time, the lieutenant governor. These are senators. This is not the man down the street in the alley, the homeless guy. These are people that you're relying on telling you some facts. Of course, they weren't. They were flying monkeys for Trump, that's all.
Yeah, they were all in on it. Let me ask you when you hear Trump say things like it could become a communist country, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to MAGA people? Is there much understanding of communism? I mean, what are you comparing that to? Communist China or some other flavor of communism? Because, it comes in all different colors, doesn't it?
Oh, they used to always say, once they bring out the trains, so they're referring to Hitler and, of course, China. And that's frightening for all of us. But now it's really hard right now because when I look back, what I listened to is insane, so I'm coming out of that. And they mainly would refer to Hitler.
Ironically, Donald Trump is far more aligned with Hitler. Mums for Liberty are far more aligned with Hitler. I mean, this is this is the irony of this.
Exactly.
And I've heard that line about the trains before, which is a very offensive term.
Mm-hmm.
Who did? I mean, because it's often that the words are said, but no one kind of goes beyond that. Because me, with my kind of the way my brain works, I'll be like, what trains? Who's bringing the trains? Who's paying for the trains? Where are the trains going? What trains are you referring to? Did those questions ever come up, or was it just you just stopped at the first sentence?
Well, that's part of the programming that you get, the brainwashing.
Yes.
That seems to stop because you are trusting the resource that you're listening to. You are. It's your best friend. It's your mother. It's your father. Maybe a senator you're talking to at one of these events I would go to. So you hear the same thing, the same message. Why would you go research? But looking back now, it's like some things they said, I thought, no, especially the QAnon. I never fell for that. That was weird stuff. And, but it's really difficult to they take away your critical thinking. They encourage you to just listen to certain people. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's true brainwashing. That's what it is.
Yeah. And this is why I have compassion for people like you, because I understand that, we're all born good, right? I believe that. And I have great faith in humanity. But, last week on this show, I interviewed Steve Hassan for the third time, who is the cult expert and wrote the book, The Cult of Trump. And I know you read that book, and that book helped you kind of make sense of the brainwashing, this undue influence that he talks about. And the thing is that, even the smartest people are vulnerable to undue influence.
Yeah.
The most educated, the most celebrated, and the thing is, Trump hasn't been brainwashed. Trump is the nucleus of this. He is the nucleus, and this is where it spreads. And this is why Jack Smith is investigating him for high crimes and misdemeanors. This is why, and in addition, obviously, to the Espionage Act and the theft of documents, and we now have a court date for Trump going to court for those documents, which is going to be May next year, May 2024, 6 months before the election next year. It is amazing to me as a British guy living in the US that there is no law against Donald Trump running again, despite the fact that he's involved in all of these crimes, because you must feel this too. It's almost like nothing has really changed. I kind of feel like the insurrection is still going on, Pam.
Yep. Yep. The propaganda, the disinformation war. That's what we have, of course. Now I know that. I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
The cult of Trump, as Stephen Hansen says in his book, when you learn that he cheated on his pregnant wife, they still believe that he's from God. I mean, so it doesn't matter what you say about Trump. Remember, he has put it in the brains of the MAGA members that he is God. Don't listen to anybody but me. And they're all lying. They're trying to take over this country. It's going to be a communist country, and that's it. So they will not listen to you. They will not believe anything you have to say.
Yeah. So you arrive at the rally, you watch Trump's speech, and you hear him say, "We're going to go to the Capitol, and I'll go with you, and we're going to take our country back." You hear him say those things?
No, I couldn't get through. I got there about 10:30 because I had had surgery. I had 40 stitches, and the crowd was too big. And I thought, oh, no. So I started asking people, is there going to be any more speakers? I was not thinking that Trump, why would he want to go talk in the Capitol? It didn't make sense. He just had a speech. But they started telling me, no, he's going to be up there at the Capitol. I go, oh, awesome. I'll get up there before everybody else. So I walked up towards the Capitol, and that's when I ran into the Proud Boys, and I walked with them for a while. Now, I'm not on the violent side. A lot of people think I'm on that violent side. I'm not. I'm not minimizing my side. They had some violence there too, but not as bad as the other side. And it's another story. But now that I started thinking, why would he go to the Capitol if he didn't have some plans? He had some plans. And he used us as the pawns. That's sad.
A lot of the January 6th defendants, they said he told us to do this. He told us to go to the Capitol. He told us that the election was stolen. He told it, and all of the blame, in many cases, outside of the obvious, you taking yourself there, is on the messaging of Donald Trump over months and weeks and days leading up to January 6th, where people had a fire in their bellies because they genuinely thought that something bad was going down. It's funny, isn't it? Because, if you lose an election, you can just run again. That never occurred to Donald Trump, did it? The idea of, I lost, okay, well, I'll try again in 4 years' time. I mean, he probably had a better chance of winning if he just did that and kept his head down and did his rallies and then, tried again next year. But he didn't take that route, did he? Because of his own mental health issues, his narcissism, his ego, and his desire to win at all costs, even if it means bringing the whole country down first.
He didn't do this alone. He had everybody else helping him. There was a plan ahead of time. As far as blaming Trump, let me say it this way. Yes, it's all Trump. It was orchestrated by Trump. We blame Trump. However, we need to take responsibility for our own decisions that day. I don't see it. It's not in me to push gates or hurt officers. It's not there. I don't care what Trump wants me to do. You have your own discernment. You have your own ability to make a choice. So I'm tired of the J6ers blaming Trump, but he's to blame. Yes. But you take personal responsibility for your choices that day. You can't just blame Trump for what you did, breaking windows and hurting officers. That's wrong. Wrong.
He actually used you in one of his posts recently, didn't he? When on Truth Social, it was someone was comparing your sentence to that of Hunter Biden's, and was saying that how is it that a 70-year-old woman should get 2 months in prison and Hunter Biden gets off, and Trump reposted that, and what did he write at the top?
Horrible.
Exclamation marks. You weren't very happy about that, were you?
It had been happening, and I was been trying to get January 6th behind me. At first, I tried to help the J6ers because I thought their motive was more about some legal stuff going on. Then I find out that they're actually making heroes out of the J6ers that hurt officers. So I kept pushing back with them. I think I was coming out of denial. And then I found out a lot of lies, tried to tell them what was happening. And then, of course, they gaslighted me and finally kicked me out of their J6 spaces and did a smear campaign on me. But, it's sad. Everything's been a lie from the J6ers, everything.
When you talk about the J6ers, who are you referring to?
Well, the last name sometimes are hard. Brandon, Walkaway, Strucken. There's a lot
so
of...
These are co-defendants. These are people that have already been
arrested.
Handed down sentences. And you were in their orbit beforehand? You knew of them beforehand? They were the ones that were involved in the organization of the meetup?
No, I never was involved. I met them all on Twitter in J6 spaces, where I opened up the first J6 space and everybody started coming in. All the big names. Chansley, of course, she's blocked me. Some of these big name people would start coming in, and every time I would debunk what they were saying or just trying to bring some facts, they would yell at me and say, no, it's the FBI. No, Pam, you're hearing it wrong. All the gaslighting. No, Pam, the officer started it. You kept hearing that. And I said, wait, I don't see any officers starting anything. So I got disliked and kicked out pretty fast. They didn't, because I was coming to see the light. It's like getting facts and trying to present it to them. So maybe they want to know the truth like I did. Well, they ruined the word truth. That's why I say facts. Truth doesn't.
So these are people that have already been through the court system.
Yep.
They've already been handed their sentence. Some of them have served their sentence already. And they are showing up on Twitter, into Twitter Spaces, which is a community environment where you can talk, you can use your voice and communicate with other Twitter users. And you're saying that even after the punishment and even after all of the debunking and the Jan 6 investigation, that some of these people, and you call them big names, which I find very interesting because they're not big names at all. They're very small names. Very sad, very small names. So please don't think of these people as anything other than, than criminals, really, because unless you're prepared to acknowledge reality and repent, as you have done in terms of being very open about what happened to you and why you feel the need to try and, address the record and correct people who are still in that space. Please do not even attempt to look up to these people.
No. Thank you for the correction. I meant in their community. They're very well known. They have the names. I know. They are not the heroes, that's for sure. The Capitol Police are the heroes. And Bird.
So there's still a community of people that would... Let me ask you this. Let's say, hypothetically, that it's November 2024 and Trump loses the election by the same margin as he lost it back then. What are these people going to think? I mean, Trump obviously will say that it's fraud. He's already trying to set people up for that. Will there be another January 6th? Will there be another riot at the Capitol? Will it be worse? Will there be rioting on the streets? And how do you feel this community would respond to a loser who keeps losing? Let's be honest. Trump loses time and time again, both in business and in politics. How would they react and respond to him losing another election?
Just listening to their rhetoric, they're ready, locked and loaded. It's hard to predict behavior, as you know. Psychologists said it's hard to predict behavior, but it's scary. It's frightening. It's scaring people. I'm more worried about the lone wolf, that one man that might do something crazy and start a chain. That's how I see it going. And that's what's worrying me the most, because he is setting them up to do another January 6th. Trump is. It's going to be his fault for sure. He was January 6th, and it's going to be his fault again. I'm not putting all the blame on him because people make choices, but he is inciting a riot from what he's saying right now. That's what I believe. Something. He's inciting people to fight back, and I don't think fight back with words and talking to your senators. I think there might be something horrible that could happen, but I'm not worried about it. This government is smashing down so fast, they'll wish they never blinked an eye. They'll regret it.
Trump is... He puts out propaganda that he's ahead in the polls and that he would beat Joe Biden. None of that is true. Joe Biden is way ahead, but and also the MAGA support is actually much smaller than people think. Yeah. They make a lot of noise, but it is not the majority of the country as Trump likes to claim it is. And so, based on today's polling, he will lose. And that is something I think that all of us have to consider. How people in the cult respond to that, we have to take that very seriously because, the last thing we want... I mean, January 6th was probably the worst thing in political history. I mean, it is outside of 9/11, which was, an external threat rather than a homegrown terrorist threat. It's up there. And it's amazing to me that the guy who caused it is still walking free and running for president. But, listen, we have to take a quick break for our sponsor, but I want to come back and ask you about what happened when you got across the police line and more here on The Weekend Show. Maybe you're like me and you sometimes struggle with what to wear, finding pieces that go together and the hassle maybe of changing clothes for different activities. Well, Rhone's Commuter Collection is the most comfortable, breathable and flexible set of products. Commuter Collection offers the world's most comfortable clothes. You never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Rhone Commuter Collection. And with Rhone's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the products. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Rhone is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. I personally love feeling fresh. I love a technical fabric, and that makes me kind of confident knowing that the clothes are looking after themselves. Well, the Commuter Collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to rhone.com/weekendshow and use promo code weekendshow to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to Rhone, RHONE.com/weekendshow and use code weekendshow. It's time to find your corner office comfort. We're back with Pam Hemphill, who served a 2-month sentence in a federal prison in the state of California for her involvement in the January 6th riot. And, I think of the riot and the insurrection as two different things. People kind of talk about it in their own ways, but for me, the riot that went on outside that you were part of was the last-ditch attempt to, do Trump's bidding when what was going on inside the Capitol building with Mike Pence and the electors failed. It was like, right, if that's not going to work, let's just go storm the Capitol. You got past the first barrier where the police were. You got to the front, and then they kind of helped you through the first barrier. Is that right? Because you were, potentially getting crushed. A lot of people kind of showed up behind you, and they actually moved you behind the police line. And then you went on to a second police line. Just tell me how you got through that second line. And in your mind, how much did you know about, were you being fed information through your phone or from other people about the fact that Mike Pence was not going to be, the hero and was needed to be hung as was being planned?
No, I was live on Facebook as a citizen journalist for Boise, Idaho. And, when I left the Proud Boys, I went up front and I saw there was a man there by the name of William Dunphy. He's been arrested. He had a bullhorn. And he was talking to a Capitol Police officer. And I turned to him, I said, "What are you guys talking about?" He says, "We're negotiating. They're going to let us up on the steps." And I thought, oh, that's great. We'll get up there and talk. And I thought, well, maybe Trump might even be on the steps and we're going to get closer to hear him or, But remember, I just had surgery. I was on medication. So I take some medication. It's like having a couple of drinks. And thinking that they were going to let us through, when you're at a football game and people try to get in quicker. So I thought they were just trying to get in fast. And then officer must have saw me panicking a little bit and he pulls me over. But being on that medication, I'm not going to make an excuse for anything I did. I'm just explaining. I went around telling everybody, come on in, it's your house. I was like, oh my God. When I went to the woman police officer, I said, why are they coming in? She says, we're not letting them in. I said, oh no. What did I just do? So they put me back the same spot. And then I knew I'm in trouble. I need to get out of here. It's too many people. They did it within a few minutes again, and they got through. The same officer pulls me over again. So I went to the captain. The captain told me go to the steps and he'll call in and they'll have me get behind him because I told him about my stitches. I was scared. But when I got there, they tried to push me on a police officer. And I was thinking real quick, I don't want to fall on him because I could injure him. And I pushed myself back on my back and I fell down. And they were stepping on me, stepped on my head, broke my glasses, cut my knee, pulled out my shoulder. I couldn't breathe. I'm lucky to be alive. And an officer pulled me up and put me behind him, saved my life that day. I sat there for 20 minutes trying to get my air. And then I saw them push the officers. They got through and they got up the steps. So I got up there and I went and talked to the captain and I said, is there any way I can help? Anything I could do? Where's the National Guard? I was panicking. And of course, he can't let a citizen help. And he said, just stand over there. We're handling this. It'll be all right. Because I was panicking. But as a citizen journalist, I stayed because I want to videotape everything I possibly can. In case I catch somebody doing something wrong, I have the video. And then fast forward, there's 2 officers at the door. And I don't know the other side is going on. So the people that I know now that are high-profile J6ers that have been arrested were coming out. And I thought, oh, they're letting us in? That's weird. But I thought this time they're not going to trick me. I'm going to get to the officers, have it on video, that they're allowing us to come in. And I had people behind me and they shoved me inside. That's how it happened. And I have that on video.
And there is CCTV of you inside the Capitol building. I just want to talk about this idea of you being a citizen journalist. And I know you've been making videos, recording videos for many, many years. With journalism, you still have to, live in a kind of reality space, like any journalists who work in war zones, they still have to put their own safety ahead of the story. And many journalists have died in the line of their work. Well, I presume you've given yourself this title of citizen journalist.
No.
And citizen journalist is a new title, isn't it? Are you doing it in coordination with an organization? Tell me a little bit about this role.
No, this is what people told me I was. I'm an amateur. I'm a retired alcohol and drug counselor. I had done some TV shows in the community I put together to help the heroin addicts who were overdosing. So I did that for a while. But I'm not I'm not a journalist. I just try to use that so you understand who I am. I'm not a news person. I'm just out there making videos and helping the community see what's going on that maybe the news isn't showing you. Because I do have a reputation. I'll get right there. Like if bullets are going by, I'll stand there and keep videotaping.
The reason this is interesting to me is because, we talk about this mind control and undue influence. And maybe you, in your mind, giving yourself the role of a camera person, gave you the license to be in a place that you shouldn't be. In addition to your politics, you felt like, I have to be recording this. This is what I do. I make videos. Do you feel that maybe that role that you gave yourself encouraged you to go beyond those barriers and go up into the Capitol building when really you should have gone home a couple of hours earlier?
I've racked my brain with that question over and over. You don't think you're trespassing. It doesn't even come to your mind at all. It's not even there. You know how you know when you're trespassing? You know it and you say, oh, this is trespassing. I better get out, right? You see a sign. It doesn't even come to you. It's not there. It's not an excuse. I am guilty. I'm just explaining. I've asked my therapist, everybody I know, why didn't I leave? What was wrong with me that moment? I don't know.
I would explore with your therapist this responsibility of being a citizen journalist. Because to me, just instinctively, that's what kind of comes out from this, is that if you are convinced that you have a role to play, then you kind of feel like if you don't do your job, you're not committing to the cause. And I think that I'm not making an excuse for you either, but I'm just interested in every individual who put themselves in DC that day, who crossed over police lines, who saw what was going on and still thought that they were doing the right thing. Because, the word that I always come back to describe how the US has changed, just in the 7 years that I've been living here, is that it has become uncivilized. This lack of civility, where you use your moral compass and your common sense, and you're like, nah, this is like, people don't do this. Humanity doesn't do this. And I include mass shootings and school shootings and violent police brutality against citizens and all of this. It is uncivilized. And January 6th was uncivilized because, there are rules, and there is always a way that a free democratic country can change things. The vote, invariably, is the way to do that. But I presume you just felt that the vote had lost all its value.
Remember, you have PTA, school teachers, doctors that had bought the big lie from Donald Trump. The election was stolen. They're frightened. This is going to become a communist country. They would fight for it.
Yeah.
There's
patriotism at the heart of this.
Extreme. I mean, people that I never thought would. I'm looking around and there's a lady with her 9-year-old daughter. It's like, fighting, screaming. It was unbelievable, the people that were there. And I am going to blame Trump because these are your everyday average person. Go to church on Sunday. I mean, I'm not talking about, Christian nationalism.
Sure.
That's another subject, but these are
regular Christians,
nice people. Like a lady that was 50 years old, her mother was probably 80, and they're cheering. And I thought, well, that's really weird. You were expect some 3%ers or something. Your average person was there, and right on the steps, right there, pushed through the barriers. It's sad what Trump has done to these people. It's really sad.
And of course, for a long time, Republicans and Trump was claiming that, the National Guard should have been there, but, Nancy Pelosi stopped them and all this stuff. And of course, then this video came out of Nancy Pelosi in the bunker with Chuck Schumer phoning and being like, where's the National Guard? Like, what's going on? And it was very clear to most of us that the people around Trump had made sure that there was no heat on the Capitol that day, that they didn't want to have, they weren't expecting, or they were certainly playing down the idea that something was going to kick off. And obviously several heads rolled off the back of that surrounding the Capitol Police and everything else. But I knew that January 6th was going to happen long before it happened. And a lot of journalists and a lot of commentators and a lot of regular voters who keep their eye on politics knew that this was all leading up to something really terrifying. And when people were like, how could anything like this happen in this country? Some of us were like, of course it was going to happen. Have you not heard what this guy's been saying for the last 4 years? Banning Muslims from coming in and turning people against each other and political parties becoming enemies rather than bipartisan governance. It was so obvious that it was all going to come to a head. And yet, plenty of people made out that, this was a surprise. This was very coordinated, wasn't it? This is something, I mean, you posted a picture of yourself holding an imitation assault weapon saying, this is war. Be there, right? Tell me about that.
I have a reputation here of people get mad at me because I don't believe you should be wearing an AR to the Capitol. So I get a lot of people upset. So my friend on New Year's thought it'd be funny to have me hold it as a toy gun, holding that gun like a joke. Here's like a nun, I'm not a nun, but because I always yelled at him. I said, why are you bringing an AR to this event? That's crazy. It's insane. So it was a joke. That's all. But the war meant political war. It's important. See, I'm not a journalist. I don't write that well. That was misunderstood. Because I'm thinking I'm still into using the system where you contact your Congress. Then I want to back up real quick. In my J6 space, we just went over this. This is what comes up all the time, that it was Nancy Pelosi's fault for the National Guard. And we debunk it in my space, and we got all the receipts. The players were all trumping around him. Had nothing to do with Nancy Pelosi. And if you ever have any doubt or any questions, come to my space, and we got the best researchers, professional researchers that have the receipts of what really happened on January 6th. Not what you think.
Do you believe that the investigation, which was very thorough, and the televised sections were compelling, and people like Cassidy Hutchinson, I mean, her testimony was compelling. She was right there. She was an assistant to the chief of staff. She was like right in the Oval Office.
Oh, yeah.
She heard it all and she saw it all, and her conscience and her patriotic desire to put her country ahead of Trump was the reason why she gave the evidence that she did. I mean, how did you feel when you saw that and you watched the hearing?
Well, that convinced me, and right away I went, to the MAGA people. Big mistake. Oh, they're paying her, Pam. Of course, now they're paying me. They're always paying somebody to lie. Everybody, and I go, I don't think so. They're not doing that. So they get mad at me because I'm watching the committee meetings. And I thought that's what started bringing me forward, because you're listening to facts. You're not listening to the MAGA call. And that's why it's important that you get your critical thinking back and listen to both sides of the story, because there's always two sides. And yeah, I was really proud of her for what she did. That took a lot of courage.
What was the trigger for you that brought you out of the cult? Like, was there a one moment or an event that, aside from your 2-month sentence, of course, I mean, that, and spending time in prison, and I know that you were in a very serious environment with cartels and all sorts of women around you, and you said that you could have died in there because they were trying to plant drugs in your room, and it was and you credit one other inmate for actually helping you get out and not get caught up in that prison system. But was there a trigger moment where that kind of cult lifted and suddenly you felt free of it? Or was it stages? Was it a series of things? How have you rehabilitated yourself to recognize that you were living in this alternative parallel universe that is MAGA?
And yet, for me, it led up to discovering facts and bringing it to the J6ers, and then having them gaslight me, and then do the smear campaign. And then I went to a few of the sedition hunters, and we put together a space, and they were bringing more facts, and whoa, it was like, because I tried to tell them about Ryan Samsel, because Gateway Pundit had put an article out that his eye was taken out. He had a lot of damage from his eye, but I got a good resource to find out that story is not true. And I tried to let them know, and they got mad at me. Who are you listening to? Don't listen to them. I said, this is a reliable source. Look at their lying. He's lying to you. Ryan Samsel did not get his eyeball. He got some damage, but they don't care. You can bring any kind of proof to them, and they just They just gaslight you. But it was just and then when I'd already heard Trump a few times say that he was going to pardon them, and I've already got to this place where you do not make these J6ers that harmed officers heroes. I was screaming inside. When I heard Trump say that he was going to pardon them, I said, that's it. That's it. No. No president ever, if he loves this country, would even consider pardoning these men that harmed the officers that day and broke windows and were violent. They wouldn't even come to their head. And if anybody says they're going to do it, don't vote for them. Zero. Don't. That is disgusting. Our military men and women died for our Constitution, for the right to peacefully assemble, not to riot. And I'll stand by that till I die. We got to honor our military men and women in the Capitol Police. They're still suffering to this day horribly. And so that's kind of what did it. I get this little anger inside. I'm going to find out all the facts about everything. And I got some very reliable sources that's giving me facts. They're not bipartisan, they just bring you the facts. And I'm so grateful to these people.
There was that phrase that Kellyanne Conway coined, alternative facts. And for me, that's when everything started to go wrong. The idea that there are two narratives and, the truth is irrelevant. It's like, well, these are my facts. Those are your facts. And it means that you end up living in a kind of upside down world where you don't know which way is up. And it's so interesting, isn't it, that our equilibrium that is required to live in reality relies on us wearing a watch and knowing what time of day it is, relies on watching the news and seeing what's happening in the world and knowing that our planet is still turning and the sun is still shining and the moon is still rising. And yet, this parallel universe that I talk about all the time on this show, where MAGA Republicans exist and still, even after being imprisoned or being fined or being up in front of a judge or whatever, they still believe that they were right because they're living in this alternate universe. It's very difficult for me to comprehend. I mean, I try with compassion. But how do you feel about people that, even though you now are pushing the facts and you're trying to communicate with them, is it that it's their allegiance to a solitary man that's the issue? Because this is the fascism, this is the, Trump calls Biden a fascist. Biden is not a cult figure like Trump. Democrats aren't voting for Biden, they're voting for democracy, right? So Biden goes, the next person will be. But with Trump, it's different. He's become this kind of messiah character for these people. Is it still that they are worshipping one solitary man, or is it that the Republican Party and MAGA have fused?
No, it's a drift. You're hitting their pocketbook. They're living off of it. And let me just back up for a minute. Let me add receipts to facts. For an example, in my J6, it's called Stop the Spin. So one of the J6ers came in and said, this guy's he's not getting due process. And I said, who's the name? And we had the sedition centers in there and our researchers. So they gave us the name. And we thought we're going to have to wait and research this. But they came back in a minute and said, here's the receipts. This person changed attorneys. We had the receipts, the facts of why he's still in jail. And they yelled at me and left. And they don't want, there has to be more than just telling them the facts. You got to bring a receipt, proof, paperwork, where we got this fact. So it's a little harder work to do, but it's working. And that's why they don't come in and talk to me, because they know they can't gaslight me. They can't lie to me anymore. We know what's happening. And as far as the FBI being there and started all this is just another of their blaming and gaslighting. It's not true. I'm glad they were there. I hope they were looking and making sure we were all safe.
Are they keeping an eye on the way that the Justice Department is seeking to meticulously analyze Trump's criminality and charge and prosecute him accordingly, because it's very likely that Donald Trump at some point, because, there are a lot of counts. There's 37 counts in this documents case, and we haven't heard yet what he's being, what the likely charges are for the insurrection. But, and of course there's the sexual abuse case with E. Jean Carroll, and then there's the Georgia case, with Fonnie Willis. I mean, Trump has been committing crimes his whole life. And the only difference is that when you are the president and you do it, you are accountable to the people, right? And so as a private citizen running a private business, a family business, you can kind of hide your crimes. And that's obviously what he's been doing. Obviously, the Trump organization got done for fraud, and Alan Weisselberg bore the brunt of that. But how do they feel about the fact that, he is really, to all intents and purposes, about to be hit with multiple charges, and there is so much compelling evidence on video and in witness testimony? I mean, Jack Smith is bringing receipts. What would the response be to that?
Well, yes, Smith will be bringing the receipts, and Trump started it with saying that they're coming after me. They're coming after you, and the lies about the DOJ. They are not weaponizing against the J6ers or Trump. You break a law, you break a law. It's that simple. But he has set it up so that you will believe that Jack Smith is just after him for no reason, But I've been saying, everybody's asked me, what would you say to Trump? I wouldn't say anything to him because he ain't going to listen to nobody. But thank God for Jack Smith. He will bring to the world the facts and the truth, and there'll be no doubt in everybody's mind that this man is a criminal and he needs to be charged and sent to prison. He's dangerous, period, to our nation. Very dangerous.
Do you think he ever will go to prison?
I do. I'm hoping. This man said to me, you need to sue this person. I said, no, I don't believe in suing. He said, but sometimes it's important to do that because you got to stop their bad behavior, what they're doing. And I go, oh, he was right. The same with prison. Sometimes you have to stop them. And if that's the only way you could stop them, but I hope they don't give him a phone in there. It's not going to help. I was told he could still be a president in the prison.
That's right. But he can still run from prison.
But
I think
they could stop that too. They could, right?
I mean, I'm not really one for predictions anymore. I am of the opinion, and have said this multiple times, that Trump is going to just get away with everything time and time again. That's because, we don't have, we have Trump-aligned judges. We have a Supreme Court that is aligned with Trump and the far right. It's, the justice system is unjust, and that's my concern. Even with the best lawyers and the best prosecutors, you still are dealing with a system that is flawed. And, unfortunately, all the, you have people serving time for just, marijuana charges, long sentences for being black and being poor. And yet, if you're white and you're rich, you just keep getting away with it. And that's my concern, because, that's the area that connects with me most emotionally, is this sense of social injustice. I want to talk about why you still choose to be a Republican. We're going to do that in just a moment after another quick pause for our sponsor here on The Weekend Show. Did you know that your temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your sleep quality? If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Maid's bed sheets. Inspired by NASA, Miracle Maid uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding, so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Using silver-infused fabrics originally inspired by NASA, Miracle Maid sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, so you get a better sleep every night. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odours. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable, without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and feel as nice, if not nicer, than bed sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/weekend to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code WEEKEND at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/weekend and use the code WEEKEND to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. That's trymiracle.com/weekend to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. We're back with Pam Hemphill, who served 2 months for her role in the January 6th riot and the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. MAGA and the Republican Party have fused. Kevin McCarthy, as the leader of the Republicans in Congress, is very much with Donald Trump, supporting Donald Trump. He's got Donald Trump's back. Marjorie Taylor Greene, again, is a big MAGA person and a QAnon person, and she's like the deputy speaker and is running the show. And even in the Senate, you've got some real far-right extremists who are MAGA people, and this is all the Republican Party. You know, this is... it's not a separate entity. Trump is the de facto leader of the Republicans, even though there was no vote. You know, where I'm from, if you want to be a leader of a party, you've got to be voted to be the leader of the party. But no, you know, this is the system that we have here. So despite everything you've been through, and despite everything you've learned, and the way that you have embraced the facts, and you've moved out of this kind of brainwashed space into a reality space where you're trying through your Twitter spaces to educate people and set the record straight for what really happened, you still call yourself a Republican. Tell us why.
We need both Republicans and Democrats, or this would not be a nation. I'm not trying to say don't be a Republican anymore. I remember the Republicans. I'm 70 years old, and it's not like it is today. And unfortunately, right now, yes, they're very dangerous. When they're allowing Mickey, the mother of Ashley Babbitt, to go in there wearing a T-shirt that her daughter was murdered, and then that other representative yesterday that was talking in the committee, she has that snake sign, the 3%er snake sign. It's like, whoa, they're the flying monkeys for Trump. That's all. They're just it's all a grift and about power and money. And they need to sit back and take a look at their values and morals. It's sad. And they're allowing it. What we need is for them to step up and say, we're going to have an ethics committee on what you're putting out there, because you're putting out lies, and it's going to cause a lot of dangerous things happen to us in this country. It's going to start another civil war. What you're saying, it's outright lying that the DOJ is weaponized. That's a lie. I mean, it's been proven. So they're just... But
all of the Republicans in Congress that speak about this, there's plenty that keep stum and, sit at the back, but they're all in line with this stuff. So my point is that what has to happen for you to change your vote to a party that is pro-democracy, that wants everybody to have a vote, whether there's a pandemic or not, that, believes in the type of values that are considered normal around the world. I mean, let's just pick a couple of issues, just because I'm interested with that, and I don't want to, pry too much, but Roe v. Wade is the biggest issue, right? For the last 50 years, women have had the right to choose. And now old white men have decided that that's not good enough, and they've changed the law. And now women are dying and babies are dying because there is no health care for pregnant women to access. It doesn't make sense to me that more Republicans are not open to switching their vote, even temporarily, until the likes of, fascist leaders in Donald Trump are eradicated, and we can go back to having leadership on both sides that is civilized.
I know it's ironic. They call about crying about liberties and taking away our freedoms, and they're doing the exact thing, taking away people's freedoms.
Yeah.
I personally would have never have had an abortion, but a family member of mine has. And I think that should be up to a woman personally, their choice.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what to do with my body. I'm sorry.
But you still want to vote for the party that is anti-abortion.
Well, I've been talking to a lot of Republicans. I can vote for Biden, stay a Republican, right?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. I mean, it's
that you don't have a choice right now. There's,
I'm just very interested in what it takes in this period of American political history for lifelong Republicans to vote for Biden, because that issue that we're dealing with, it's like a crossroads, isn't it? We choose fascism or we choose democracy. I'm so interested in what will it take, and you've been through the federal prison system, and you still you still call yourself a Republican. This is fascinating to me.
Yeah. I guess I'm going on the old days, because I'm hearing the same thing from all my Republican friends that I know. We don't have a Republican Party anymore. I don't know what to do. I'm not gonna be in a party. This is what I keep hearing. It's the same thing that I'm feeling. Like, where do we go now? It's sad. It needs to be cleaned up, and they're a big part of bringing Trump's message. And shame on you. That's what I'd be telling them if I was in Congress. Shame on you. Yeah. You bring in fascism? Come on. This is not what the Republican Party stands for. You know what it stands for, and start standing for it. Don't be so scared. Stand up to these people. I love, like, some of them are doing the Democrats, man. They're really in there. They're pushing back hard and truthful with facts. So you need to listen to these Democrats because they know what they're talking about. And I think that's what I would be telling them right now. Listen to the Democrats. They want this to be a free nation as much as you do, but you're sounding like you want it to be a communist nation. Shame on you, just because you want money and power. One day you got to meet your maker. I hope that you're all right with what you're doing.
Let me ask you, are you and your family, who I presume are Republican, and many of them are Trump supporters, are you from great wealth? Are you very rich? Do you own a yacht? Do you operate multiple businesses in multiple territories? What is it that for you and your family, and historically and hereditarily, the desire to vote Republican? Because I know, obviously Idaho went for Trump in 2016 in a big way, and in 2020. Because nothing that Trump offers, none of the policies of the Republican Party are for people like you. That you would benefit, and your family, I presume, would benefit if you supported Democrats. Just in terms of, because there were no benefits to any Republicans during Trump's 4 years. Nothing changed to benefit Republicans that I'm aware of. There was a kind of a little 401k trick that he played on people where it looked like they were getting money from him, a check, but it turned out just to be a rebate, and that was like a bribe very early on in his presidency. But what do you think the people that support Trump, what do they get from him if they wanted to re-elect him? Like, what is life like? How is life better with Donald Trump if you are a Republican? Because as far as I see it, you have to be very wealthy, in the top 1%, to see any benefits from a Republican government.
You know what I remember is with Republicans that we wanted to, the story about feeding a man a fish. Isn't it better to teach him how to fish so that he could take care of himself? It's like, that's the old school. That's what Republicans want to see. We want to help those that are in need, but not enable them per se. But, it's really hard right now because we don't have the Republican Party right now. It's a Trump party. And that's sad. I know there's got to be some out there that might be listening that might say, oh no, I'm throwing away that Trump hat. That's all I'm doing. I'm just throwing away the cult. They've been brainwashed. They've been listening to a liar. And if you want to continue listening to a liar that's destroying this country and will take away all your liberties and everybody else's, I feel sorry for you. You have a choice. Remember Herbert Spencer? What he said was, contempt prior to investigation will leave a man in everlasting ignorance. Open your mind. Listen to the Democrats. Work together because they have the best interest for this country right now, the Democrats, because the Republicans are just lying to you and making up all this stuff for their drifting, for their money. And that's sad. I don't know if I made sense, but...
That made sense. I mean, Joe Biden says, this is not your grandfather's Republican Party.
Yeah, it's not.
Right?
It's not.
But, Pam, it's never going to go back to that. As long as the current people are involved.
Yeah.
They've all been radicalized.
Yeah.
And people like Kevin McCarthy are not good people. They don't have a good soul. They are in politics for the wrong reasons. And this is what frustrates me the most, is because, I too, my parents voted Conservative in the UK. Obviously, our Conservative is a little different. It's much more centrist or moderate, And so when I was 18, I first got to vote. I voted Conservative a couple of times because I was like, this is what my parents do. And my parents, like, the Conservatives support business. My parents were shopkeepers. It's like, it kind of felt like the right thing to do. And so I've always been very interested in this idea of hereditary voting, where you just grow into your parents' politics. Is that what happened with you? Did you just grow into a Republican household?
No, actually, they never voted. No, my family was extremely dark childhood, very dysfunctional people. It was later with the influences after going to school and getting my certification as an alcohol and drug counselor and hanging around different people. But no. Yeah. Because
there's a lot of young Republicans growing up in Republican households and kids going to places like Liberty University, where they're being indoctrinated into this kind of far-right Christian nationalist MAGA Republican world, growing up thinking that men are better than women and that it's all about, making money and all of those kind of traditional Christian values that you talked about earlier. They seem to have been lost in the message somewhere.
I know. But what would happen if the whole nation was all Democrat? That's it. One party.
Well, I don't think it'll ever get like... But you don't need... My point is that you don't need many votes to tip it because it's so close at the moment, And in order to put the US back onto a pro-democracy model where you don't have the rise of fascism...
Right.
And if, you need to have people recognize that this is not about politics anymore. This is bigger than politics. Yes. This is about protecting the republic. And the republic only operates, it's a constitutional republic that runs as a democracy. And that's another excuse. You hear it all the time. Marjorie Taylor Greene says it. We're not a democracy, she says.
We're a republic. I read the book. I know.
Yeah. And it's like, you're missing the point. Like there is nuance to this. It's not one thing or the other, but everybody likes to put things in boxes. And so in order to address the balance of wanting to live in a society that functions and remains civilized, there are some things you have to do. You have to ban assault weapons, right? Not taking everyone's guns away. You have to ban assault weapons. You have to. Like, it's essential. Not a single Republican is up for that kind of stuff, right? Not interested. They prefer guns to children's lives, and yet they call themselves pro-life, you know? So things like that, these big issue subjects, like banning these weapons of war, allowing women the right to choose, making sure that there's enough polling places so that everybody can vote, you know? Because that's another thing that happened, taking away the vote, you know, and blaming COVID and saying, oh no, we're only going to have one polling place, you know, and it's like, there should be a polling place on every corner, you know, invest in that stuff. Give everybody the right to not just choose, but the right to vote. The only way that these things are going to be addressed in this current period of American history, in my view, is enough people to vote Democrat so that these issues can be dealt with. And then we can hopefully go back to having a more moderate Republican leader, put Trump in prison, and go back to business as usual, because America is one of the greatest countries in the world. But it can't remain the greatest country or one of the greatest countries if it's not free.
And that's why it's more important than ever to encourage the Democrats to get out there and vote this time. I mean, everybody says, oh, my vote don't count. This time it will. No, get out there and vote. And that's the job, because you're not going to change these Republicans right now. They're too brainwashed by Trump. This is a communist country. You got to understand that. You guys want to turn us into, put us on the camps. They are not listening to you. Don't even try. Well, Steve Hansen said there's a way to approach them and talk to them. I agree. But you know what I'm saying in general. Just stay with your values, your morals, and vote and encourage these people. It's not about changing all of them, one at a time. I can't get it. The job is you and me doing this. And then, a salesman, if he sells one thing to you, you'll sell it to 10 people, right? So if we can help one cult member, MAGA member, maybe that member will, the domino effect. And that's all I'm trying to do.
It's just a temporary switch, isn't it? Because that's the thing. I'm not a Democrat. I don't even get to vote in this country. But I do believe in democracy.
Yes.
I'm very pro-democracy and I am pro-freedom. And yet the Republican messaging is all about freedom. And yet there is no freedom. If you're banning books, if you're trying to stop trans people from living, it's like none of this is freedom. This is all autocracy. This is the communism that they're complaining about.
But they hide that so well. See, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Because, they'll bring one black person, one LGBT person. They kind of hide it. And when I got out of it, I said, oh my God, I really didn't know all this. Of course, the Christian, what is it? The Christian, what's it called? The ones that are losing their mind right now. But I didn't see a lot of this because it's not like they're advertising it. It sneaks up on you.
It's hard that we all live online these days. That really doesn't help because, Twitter has changed a lot and for the worse, right? It has been taken over by somebody who is, pro-Russia in the war. Elon Musk is, I used to think Elon Musk was a hero, and now I see him as a true kind of enemy of the state. And yet, he is facilitating so much misinformation on Twitter. And I actually think it's getting worse rather than getting better now. And I still think that the media, the mainstream media, whatever you choose to call it, is not handling it very well. And, I read this story the other day about this weather guy, TV news weather guy, who was told by his superiors not to mention climate change when covering stories of extreme heat because it turns viewers off, and he was getting death threats because climate change has been politicized. Pam, this is what it's come to now, right? This is where we're at when the planet is so hot that people can't do their jobs, can't live. It's, we've seen in Phoenix, Arizona, all sorts of places, it's like record temperatures, hottest week in history. And yet Republicans are still climate deniers.
When I was curious about that, I thought, is this another, way to scare us? So I called some people. I said, is there any books I can read to get the facts about this? Nobody knew of any. That they would refer me to. So again, all this stuff, it needs to be fact checked, get the right authors that know what they're talking about. And if I ever come across that book, I'll refer it out. So
do you still feel that, this is just an aside really, but do you still question whether climate change is real based upon the environment?
It's real. Yeah.
But was there a point where you didn't?
No.
Have you come to this realization recently, or you've always understood the science?
No, a lot of issues I wanted to find out. Who knows the truth here? That's what's this is the problem now. I don't trust even you now. It's like, where's he getting that information? I better find out where not that I don't mean it like that. Because see what they've done to me as a cult.
Yeah.
It's like, they distorted so much that you don't know who to listen to anymore. And that's sad, but I know who to listen to. I do. I'm picking a few people, and they give me the right referrals for books and articles. But these people, it's like everything's a lie, right?
It's hard. It's having that kind of instinct to be able to make a judgment call on stuff. But, the way I like to look at it is that in reality, everything is accurate. It's only in this fantasy world, this parallel kind of fascist universe, where all of this stuff. And some people are so deep into it. Look at RFK Jr., who took the stand the other day and basically said that he'd never said anything negative about vaccines. It's like, hello.
What? We heard that. I think it's important that we do our own critical thinking and our own research. Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, welcome back to reality, Pam.
I'm still getting there.
I know you're still getting there, but I know it's been a long journey for you, and I'm pleased that you had the strength to plead guilty for your crime and see the error of your ways, and the way you've handled it has been, respectable, and I only hope that you're able to communicate what you've learned to other defendants, but also people who are still in the cult.
Yeah, actually, I'm finding that it's helping the Democrats forgive them, including myself, because I don't blame them. They have a lot of anger, and I don't blame you. You should be angry at us and keep that anger. But without kindness and forgiveness and compassion, we're not going to get anywhere. We got to listen to them and give them a safe place to land when they want to leave. And I'm hoping I can provide that safe place to land.
Okay. My thanks to Pam Hemphill. I'm Anthony Davis. Subscribe to my new show, MAGA Uncovered, with Ron Filipkowski, Wednesdays here on the Midas Media Network, and support me and independent journalism on patreon.com/5Minute News. Join me next week with a brand new special guest and more factual news stories to discuss on the 5 Minute News Weekend Show with MeidasTouch.